do it.
Gentlemen, we're going to start the meeting now. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 2021 meeting of the Historic Conservation Commission. I'm Gary Lader, Chair of the HCC. I'd like to introduce the commission. To my left is Jeff Long, our Historic Officer and Registered Architect. To my right is Chaz Patrick, business owner. Ken Lausch is a resident of the Mount Airy District. Craig Evans is a resident of the district. Roger Hudak, resident of the district. And Mike Simonson is not here tonight, but he is our chief building inspector. And I will read a little bit about the ordinance information. It is the purpose and intent of the city of Bethlehem to promote and enhance and preserve historic resources and traditional community character for the education, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the public through the preservation, protection, and regulation of buildings and areas of historic interest or importance within the city, which have been determined to be of local, state, or national significance. The way the meeting will unfold is the applicants will be taken in order. After identifying the project address and the presenter, our historic officer will provide a background on the building and any recommendations. At that time, the applicant will present their project and plan. The board will then address the project. If there's anyone from the public who would like to make comment, they will be given an opportunity. And ultimately, we will create a motion to approve as presented, approve with modifications, table the project with clear recommendations, or deny the project with reasons for the denial and changes or improvements which would result in a positive recommendation. We'll just ask a quick question. Am I coming through clearly enough with the mask on? Yeah, okay, good, thank you. The HCC is a recommending board, and the results of our meeting will be presented to City Council and the vote will be binding. Please do not forget to secure your permit from the permit office on the first floor of City Hall before you begin your project. Above all, I remind everyone to conduct themselves in a civil manner and always use a civil tone. The commission is here to help you with your project. We are a group of volunteers who are dedicated to historic preservation and restoration of older buildings in Bethlehem and beyond. If any commission members have a conflict of interest with any of the applications on tonight's agenda, please come forth at this time. Anyone? Okay, great. I ask, well, normally we would have everyone sign in. I don't know if the sign-in sheet turned up yet. Okay. There are several new methods to expedite our monthly meetings, and they include a 45-minute time limit on new proposals for large projects. Also, upon a second visit to the commission for large projects, the following will be required: architectural plan with lot lines, setbacks, defined architectural features, all measurements, including the amount of floors, foundations, walls, parapets, window sizes, and the like. Also, a complete set of elevations of the building with streetscape drawings showing the new structure in context with surrounding buildings. And with that, I will ask if the applicant for 510 East 4th Street is here. Okay, hi, John. Yeah. And please announce yourself, and Jeffrey will give the product description.
Yes, John Lee. I'm the architect for the project. Any swearing or anything?
No. But thanks for asking.
Well, you said conducted civilly, so there's no swearing, right? So.
East 4th Street.
The property owner, Catherine Kelly. Just Catherine, and it's just an odd spelling. It's more of the Gaelic spelling.
Building description, period, style, and defining features. This structure is a semi-detached, 2.5-story, 3-bay residential building with vinyl siding that covers both sides of the structure. Built in the late 19th century, the steeply twisted cross gable, original slate roof characteristics of the Victorian Gothic style. The existing concrete front porch is a mid-20th century addition, while the porch is open west posts and shed roof fell into disrepair and were recently removed. Proposed alterations, it is proposed to remove the existing ground support structure, including the rest of the posts, and be replaced with a new shingle support roof and vinyl roof. The citations for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior's number 9, considering new additions, exterior alterations, related new construction, as well as the Bethlehem ordinance that is related that is the my assessment, evaluation, and recommendations. The certificate of appropriateness application indicates the intent to replace the already demolished front porch element, including inappropriate open west iron posts, wrought iron handles, etc., and replace them with other porch details. Based on the provided drawings, the porch roof is approximately 90 feet by 18 feet wide, and that measures about 1 foot wider than the actual concrete porch below, in order to shelter the steps that are at the side. On the side of the replacement porch ceiling is 8 feet 5 inches above the finished floor of the existing concrete porch. The existing wrought iron handrail of the steps leading down to the sidewalk are to remain. Those structural elements include 4x4 pressure treated wooden posts. There's a section drawing that notes that the posts are to be covered with vinyl. The floor plan drawing indicates 3 posts, new posts, while the front elevation indicates 4 posts. The replacement handrail assembly is described as quote vinyl railing system with 2x2 vinyl balusters. On the porch section drawing, on the front elevation drawing describes the new handrail as an AZAC top and bottom rails with 1.5 by 1.5 baluster. We have a couple of conflicts here. We have a floor plan that says there are 3 posts. The elevation shows 4 posts. Section indicates 2x2 vinyl balusters. And the elevation says there's 8 sections of composite rails and 1.5 by 1.5 balusters. Additional structure elements include a gang of 2x8 pressure treated wooden beams across the front of the porch, resting on the new post. Front elevation drawing indicates the beams are to be covered with the proposed porch ceiling, AZAC, and composite beaded soffit panel. The replacement shed roof with 4/12 pitch matches the previous roof line, while the proposed sheathing is GAF site-line asphalt shingles and antique posts. The aluminum drip edge across the front of the porch allows rainwater to run into the aluminum gutter that leads to 2 downspout, 1 at each end of the porch. The side gable of the new porch roof is to be sheathed with cement boards on sides with a smooth surface and 8-inch posts. The replacement porch details are appropriate as proposed with the following clarifications and modifications. ATC will not recommend vinyl building materials for approval within the historic conservation district. So the vinyl handrail that appears in one drawing is not appropriate. There is an alternative. According to relevant design guidelines, appropriate porch elements for wood frame structure should be wood. However, ACC has previously determined porch components, including handrail assembly with composite material, which will be manufactured comfortable, as an appropriate alternative. Posts covered in vinyl are also inappropriate. Consider wood posts or alternative posts fabricated by firms specializing in structure element sheets with composite comparable to be compatible with the new composite handrail. I would like to note that one benefit of composite is you can actually paint them by the original proposed line is not. But changing from vinyl structural posts to composite, which is structural, might require the applicant to recalculate the sizes of the posts. Various structural requirements. urge the applicant to look at the adjacent property at number 508 Fourth Street for restoration. And then here, I think the photograph should be for the purpose proposed. I'm not saying it has to be highly decorative like a clay post. The front of the drawing just simply shows a square post. This type of a house would have some kind of a base, even if it's a simple orange base, some kind of a council to connect to the beams. Those pieces also help modify the differentials between the intersections and joints. My suggestion is to install 4, not 3 structural posts. So one drawing shows 3, 4. My opinion is 4 is correct. I would modify the location of the post slightly. I would start with the third post from the left. It needs to be centered between the two windows. Right now, it's a little off center between the two windows. And then mirror that placement so it's also centered on the other side of the window. So that the second post is facing the placement of the third post. Currently, they're not really on center. Again, the key here is to have the post centered, the right post to the left center of the windows, and then mirror that placement for the post to the left of that window. The door is off center, so I'm not worried about placement, the line between the windows. Also, if you look at the photograph, the junction between the existing building facade and the proposed roof, there's going to be some kind of a flashing detail. The existing sheeting at that point is often some kind of repair. And finally, in reference to the gutters and downspouts, there is in one photograph a downspout loop at the right of the porch that leads to below the sidewalk swale that takes the rainwater to the street. The applicant proposes gutters on the left and the right. That would mean the gutter on the left would evacuate into the street on the sidewalk. If everything was directed to the gutter and downspout to the right, then all that rainwater should be directed below the sidewalk. You don't have a problem with freezing over winter or hazards walking on the sidewalk. It's a little hard to see. I had to go there and look at it in person myself. And because of that, the downspout would probably have to be resized. Not 2 downspouts, 1. And those downspouts are not only servicing the porch, they're also servicing the main roof. Notice there are leaders from the main roof downside. They're also kind of hanging in the wind. So the center work should also include tightening up those leaders from the main roof. In my opinion, direct all rainwater possible. One downspout into that below
Jeffrey? Okay. John, I have a feeling that the drawing dated 8/10 is the one we should be looking at, right?
Yeah, with the revision number 1 up here.
Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Yeah, and just to clear up a couple discrepancies, we meet with Mr. Long. This was before the August 30th meeting, and made some changes to his suggestions, which we did change to AZAC, and we do want to change. We're okay with that change, the AZAC in lieu of vinyl. As far as the 4 versus 3, again, what I felt it would look better with 4, which is then when we change the elevation to neglecting to change the floor plan. But I don't necessarily agree on the center line of windows, because I think our spacing would be much better with 3 equal spaces, because unless you happen to look at that elevation at the split second when you're directly straight in front of it, you're never going to see whether that post is center line on the window or whether it's not.
Right.
I think we'd be better off for the other 99.5% of the time when somebody is walking by looking at it from one angle or the other to have 3 equal spaces. But we have no problem. If you want to center line them, I don't really care. So that I'll leave up to you. I'm fine with it either way. As far as the downspouts are concerned, the fact that it is taking rainwater from both the upper and lower roofs is why I put 2 down there. So I don't have a situation. It's not necessarily a situation where the gutter, in fact, is capable. It's in a heavier rain, you get a lot more water, and you're not going to get it off of those with only one downspout at the other end of an 18-foot. It's questionable in a heavy rain whether you're going to get all that water off in the downspout or whether it's going to overflow. I have no issues if we want to delete it to 1, because again, if we play percentages, probably 90% of the rainfalls out there will not overflow the gutter and will go in that gutter. So I have no issues with that suggestion, but that's why we initially had put 2. So I think I've covered everything, Jeff, that you've brought up as an issue. So
Any thoughts on flashing into your neighboring building? I don't know how you work something out to flash into somebody else's building, but it seems necessary.
I was actually mentioning the new roof line of each existing house.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
typical aluminum, turn it up the wall a little bit, and they'll step flashing on the shingles. You go down the wall, regulate it into the wall.
Yeah, step flashing would be great. You think we could even do it with copper?
Hey, you want to pay the bill for jumping from copper to aluminum, or vice versa?
Well, that's what we recommend.
I would say no. I'd rather stick with aluminum.
Yeah, well, I mean, even getting it stepped would be pretty good. The only other thing that caught my eye, I'm wondering if you have to do the railing height at 42 inches because you're 3 feet above grade. I forget what the exact code requirement is, but you might be kicked into a 42-inch high railing.
Code requirement is 30 inches. 36 is what was out there. Our existing is 31 inches plus or minus.
Well, anyway,
Or an inch over that.
yeah, just something to check because I know it's a certain height above grade kicks you into it, and I just forget what. But otherwise, everything else sounds pretty good. With the post that you're going to AZEK, if you're wrapping something around pressure treated, are you going to be kicked into a bigger post?
We may go with a structural AZAC post.
Okay.
It's a detail we'll work out with the builder once we get there, which is one of the reasons why even going with the 4 posts, you get very little load on each post now. So
Yeah, sounds good. Anybody else have some questions, comments? Craig? Any comments?
Are you looking for a motion here?
I am.
Okay. I move that we recommend a certificate of appropriateness for 510 East 4th Street, the porch roof as described, with the details as follows. Changes to the elevation drawing to be four distinct posts, equally spaced, with the post being a structural AZEK material. The party line, party wall elevation, or I don't know, juncture, party wall juncture should have aluminum step flashing. Flashing beneath the windows to the upper edge of the sloping roof to be then aluminum. And did we have a decision on the height of the railing?
I think it just has to be confirmed with code and
I would say 42 inches is what we're gonna have to go. So,
Okay.
just include- I mean, that's gonna be a code issue.
it is a code issue, so.
Downspouts as described to the guttering. I think I've covered it.
Reduce to one downspout is what you're suggesting.
One downspout?
One downspout.
Second to Gary.
Okay, thank you, Ken. All those in favor, we'll go down, Craig Evans,
Aye.
Ken Loach,
Aye.
Roger Hudak.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Chaz, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
You gotta get Seth up there.
Seth, what are you doing over there? Come over here.
Good where I'm at, because I don't have to wear a mask. Good.
Oh, okay.
Vote aye.
All right. I'm sorry I didn't see you up there, but thank you, Seth.
The Lone Ranger.
What?
I thought that was him up there.
No, I'm good right where I'm at. I can wear my mask really loose, and I can be here. Good.
Seth, I'm going to ask that you join us, just because I think it will be a little easier for everyone. You know, I think I think it's helpful to have you up here, and I think it'll be confusing otherwise.
You want me to sit up there somewhere?
I sure do. No,
Can I not wear my mask?
no, the mask thing gotta be part of it. Not my rule. I think it's City Hall.
Question.
Oh, okay.
I mean, where do you want
Thank
me
you for
to
the
sit?
reminder.
You can sit wherever you want.
I was sitting where I want.
Okay.
Where do you want me to
With
sit,
limits,
Gary?
with limits.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
That's fine.
No worries, buddy. It's all good. You can share this too.
All right, well,
Seth, I'd
I
like to
can't wear a
just-
mask very long because of my breathing issues, so.
It's okay. I'm here for you.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Bob.
Didn't I talk to you about
You sure
that, Gary?
did, yeah, but I think either way.
Okay,
you
so
have
I
to wear-
thought I
yeah.
just got sandbagged. Thank you.
Okay,
right.
I'm a little confused. Maybe I misunderstood. I apologize. Anyway, let's go to the next agenda item. So 215 Broadway, and John, you're still up there? Good.
Thanks for doing consecutive. Saves my knees from walking back and forth this 4 feet.
Okay.
Are you being joined by Mr. Salamani?
No,
Okay.
he got a lot of poison ivy over the weekend and is not very comfortable right now. Do have the contractor, the construction manager in the project, Harley Shoup, with me, with CMG of Easton, if there's any questions that,
For minutes purposes, if you could spell that name, please.
Harley Shupp.
Thank you. So agenda item number 215 Broadway. The building description, period style, defining features. This structure is a 2.5-story brick masonry, semi-detached, former residential building with a slate roof that was modified in the early 20th century with a commercial storefront. The 2-story, 2-bay storefront includes a brick parapet above a cast stone projecting cornice with a simple profiling, 2 pairs of 1/1 double hung windows with large cast stone headers separated from the cornice by soldier coursing, a large display window under a profiled cast stone cornice, and a door with transom on either side of the display window. The building dates from the late 19th century and the storefront dates from circa 1920. The storefront is classical revival in style, which is typical of the residential/commercial conversions elsewhere in the Historic Conservation District. Proposed alterations, it is proposed to demolish and then construct a new 25 feet by 107 feet building. Guidelines I used for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior standards that I referenced in the previous assessment, the Bethlehem ordinance that Mr. Later read at the beginning of tonight's meeting, the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines concerning demolition, as well as the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines concerning new construction. My evaluation and recommendations. During the HCC meeting on September the 18th, 2017, the applicant received approval to fully demolish the existing building at 215 Broadway. And please note the agenda intentionally says 215 Broadway. The application said 217 because this appeared back in 2017 and has a resolution. We need to be consistent, so that's why I'm intentionally saying 215. So at that time, so predating my involvement, HCC required various elements before the applicant could move forward. They included scale drawings must be created to document the existing cast stone architectural elements in case they cannot be salvaged. All cast stone or stone architectural elements and as much as the historical brick as possible would be salvaged and reused for the new facades. The new front and side facades should match the drawings, which were submitted on May of 2017 and amended. I'm sorry. And that also causes some confusion because there have been several iterations of drawings since then. The requirement for a foundation plan for the building must also be submitted prior to demolition. It should be noted that HCC determined the subsequent foundation plan is appropriate during its meeting on April the 17th of this year. So about 6 months ago, we approved a foundation plan that was in satisfaction of one of the requirements from the May 2017 meeting. And the applicant was required to return to HCC with revised facade drawings for the proposed replacement building. HCC records indicate a series of earlier reviews that also resulted in an HCC motion in support of the certificate of appropriateness during the meeting of May 15 of 2017. So we have several meetings in the past that I did not participate in. This meeting was not referenced in the material, but it also had resolutions associated with it. And it sounds a bit confusing. It's important that we go through these because we need to create a resolution to now amend some of the things that are pushing 4 years no longer relevant or have changed. At that time, it included reuse of the salvage brick and also new brick to match the existing. The entrance door and the bifolding doors at the front facade was to be similar to the adjacent former firehouse. Window openings for the upper lever terrace were to have infill that would imply double gang windows. Otherwise, at least at that time, it stated no other windows or door openings would be allowed on the new construction. So there were door openings on the front, the street facade, bifolding doors, an entrance door, and 2 windows above. And the motions back then stated specifically no other windows or doors. I'm stressing this because we're seeing a difference. And if you pass that resolution, we need to talk about those differences.
Jeff, what line item on the resolution is saying no other?
I don't have the line item in front of me. I'm summarizing that entire, it's the one passed in May of 2017.
I have.
And it also states that a smooth cement-based stucco with acrylic top coat and integral color for the remaining side facade was approved with samples to be submitted to HCC at a future meeting. The applicant envisioned reconstruction to serve as the addition to the existing structure at 217 Broadway, and that's important. That's why I'm stressing 215. So 217 is the actual firehouse. With potential for interior openings to allow circulation between both buildings. The current application details the applicant's intentions, many of which satisfy select items from the previous 2 or 3, however you see it, certificates. The proposed structure measures 19 feet wide by 109 feet deep. by 28 feet high, and it has what I would call 3 extensions. And they're all on the north facade. One measures 14 feet by 5.5 feet deep and is 14 feet high. It has an immediate adjacent extension that measures 21 feet by 5.5 feet by 28 feet high. And then there's yet a separate extension that measures 46.5 feet wide by 8.5 feet deep and 28 feet tall. So these are 3 kind of a series of additions off to the side, which is currently a parking lot, and these measurements are approximate because the drawing, when it's reproduced, is not exactly to scale. So, Gary, I don't know if it's important. I'm assessing each facade based on the previous resolutions and the current guidelines. I don't know if it makes sense to break between each facade to give the commissioners a chance to ask questions, or should I assess all facades and then we open? I don't want to confuse anybody because it is quite confusing because of the series of previous resolutions.
I'm okay addressing all the facades
Okay.
together.
All right, I will break them down into categories. So the front facade references the east facade. The applicant does show that the cast stone elements are to be salvaged and reused. That is appropriate based on previous resolutions. Applicant also states as much historical brick as possible is to be salvaged and reused for the new facade. That is also appropriate based on previous resolutions. It does say there will be more brick needed, and that new brick should match the existing, and the entire facade should be pointed with an appropriate mortar that matches the existing in color, texture, joint style, and softness. Again, that comes directly from a previous resolution. The top of the raised facade has a parapet is below the decorative detailing of the adjacent firehouse. That was a requirement of a previous resolution, and that is appropriate. There is a single entrance to the left of the storefront as requested previously, and the new door matches the existing on the adjacent firehouse. However, the transom above is smaller to align with the bifolding doors rather than a tall transom at the firehouse. So the previous resolution said the door and the transom had to match the existing at the firehouse. That's no longer possible. The transom must be smaller so that it aligns with everything else on the 215 structure. The large bifolding doors replace a former display window and secondary entrance. That, according to previous resolutions, is appropriate. There are 2 panels on each side of the vertical divide, and each panel is divided into 5 lights. That was also required, and that's reflected in the drawings. I would like to note that there's no tinted or reflective glass in the historic district. That would be considered inappropriate. I didn't see that previously in any kind of resolution. There are windows at the second floor to accommodate outdoor dining. They do have the requested aluminum frames around the windows so that each is divided vertically to create the appearance of pairs of windows. And the lower sash is infilled with 4x4-inch wire mesh orthogonally oriented. The only difference here, the previous resolution suggested that the infill is to be 2x2-inch wire mesh, and he's showing 4x4-inch wire mesh. I don't have an opinion about that whatsoever. The front landing and the railing is to match the adjacent firehouse. That is shown in the drawing, so that would be appropriate based on the previous resolution. And the proposed 12-inch by 24-inch porcelain tiles in a matte black finish are oriented both horizontally and vertically. I cannot find that those were ever discussed by HCC, so that requires discussion.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey, where is the tile?
It's indicated on the front facade drawing. It's described as matte black porcelain tiles,
Oh,
a
okay, I see.
12 by 24-inch format. Some of them are vertical and some of them are horizontal.
You surround a large overhead door. And
Yeah, I got it.
bifolding door.
So to me, that has not been discussed. And the small issue of the transom above the entrance door has been resized just so it fits the opening. I would like to note, and we'll see it more as we go around the corner, there are the single-story and double-story additions are proposed to be sheathed in metal panel siding. And they would be visible not only from on the side, but also from the front. And they also include additional windows and doors. So as I said previously, the resolution was pretty adamant that there weren't supposed to be any more windows and doors. And there was never any discussion of metal panel siding. And so that's a new issue in my opinion as well. So that was my assessment of the front facade or the east facade. Would you like me to continue with the remaining facades?
Please do.
Okay. The side facade or the north facade, this is the facade that has the most changes since HCC last put a resolution forth. And I do want to preemptively say the applicant claims, and I'm not disclaiming that there was a photo montage, a three-dimensional kind of perspective drawing that was presented to HCC several years ago. He was under the impression that there was a resolution passed approving that photo montage, but HCC doesn't pass resolutions based on photo montages. They have to be scaled drawings.
No, they were scaled drawings. It was,
That's not a
this
scale.
rendering
You
was
can't
presented
scale.
at the
You can't
last
scale a
meeting.
perspective photo montage. There's no scale to that.
Okay.
I'm not discounting that HCC's never seen that, but I am stressing that things on that drawing that in the discussions the applicant described that we had about 6 weeks ago, he was under the impression HCC already approved. When I go into the record, I find no record of discussion of that drawing, much less approvals. So I'm just saying that because it's important. If the applicant is seeking approval of those components, the resolution tonight is going to have to list those things because I don't have on record any of those things. If somebody goes out and inspects what he's building, there's no record to cross-reference that he's allowed to build. So that's why I'm stressing that. So the south facade, most of the facade extending 25 feet from the corner is no longer brick. The original, way back when, showed that was pretty much all brick. Now it shows there's a, quote, insulated metal panel rain screen system in a black flat finish. Again, nowhere do we see any resolution with that, so it's important that we discuss that during tonight's assessment. I will state that HCC has determined metal panel siding as appropriate for exterior sheathing for select contemporary style buildings within the district or new construction of non-contributing structures, and also once or twice for recessed rooftop additions, but I couldn't find any location of where this type of siding was approved on a contributing structure, just for reference. On the south facade, there are also two upper-level window openings with aluminum frames that create two pairs of windows similar to the windows around the corner on the front facade. They're indicated in the brick portion, and they have wire mesh infill at the lower sashes. They include cast stone sills, lintels, and caps, and are to be installed within the brick section. The drawings also depict 4 additional windows described as, quote, thermally broken aluminum frame with insulated glazing, as well as 2 emergency egress doors. And I couldn't find the notation of the material of the egress doors. However, the previous certificates indicated that no additional windows or doors are to be allowed at the side facade, so discussion of these components is definitely warranted. Previous reviews with HCC also offered no indication of the materials for the visible roof landscapes, so the current proposal for a standing seam metal roof on the smallest one-story addition, as well as the EPDM rubber membrane for the remaining roofs warrant discussion. No, HCC does consider standing seam metal roofing for secondary roof landscapes as appropriate. We would just need, for our purposes of the resolution, the applicant to clarify what kind of material, color, those kind of things. But typically HCC does not consider visible EPDM rubber roofs as appropriate. In the past, HCC has required applicants to raise a parapet to screen such roofs from public view. There is a photograph showing from an angle this kind of roof landscape, and I agree it would be quite limited, so I'm not saying we have to, but I'm saying in the past, rubber roof membranes were always not to be visible from the public right-of-way. The provided picture does indicate there are trees in front of this. However, remember, in order to construct the additions, a series of additions, those trees will be removed, so the trees will no longer be screening the view from the public right-of-way of those roofs. So I have no problem with the standing seam roof for the lowest roof. We would just want to know, aside from standing seam, it doesn't say anything, so we just need to understand material and color. The rubber roof, I think is worth talking about because that could establish a precedent for other locations in the district. The remainder of the side facade, as well as the rear facade and visible portions of the other side facade, are to be finished in a sand smooth cement-based stucco with acrylic top coat in integral color. That is appropriate. That's what we requested at a previous resolution. And I understand the applicant was going to be submitting some samples. Is that right, John? Do you have the samples?
They were submitted with the application. And when we met, Darlene had them when we met at the last meeting.
I guess they brought them for the last meeting. That might be something we'd have to, and Mike Simonson is not here. Oftentimes he'll keep those kind of things in his office for people to take a look at. I'll have to make a note because they must have been included previously.
No, they're actually looking for.
People didn't bring them tonight.
Yeah.
And then finally, the side elevation also depicts a metal stair. While the previous certificate noted the wooden emergency stair at the rear. So you previously approved a wooden stair at the rear, and now we're seeing a metal stair at the side. I will note that HCC discourages visible emergency stairs within the district and encourages applicants to enclose those stairs. So I did find a couple of meetings where we did request an applicant to enclose rather than express an emergency stair. And then finally, the rear or west and the other side or the south facades. The previous applications did not include any drawings or details associated with the rear or remaining side facade. However, the current submittal does indicate both facades are to be finished in the sand smooth cement-based stucco with acrylic top coat, as we just talked about on the other side facade. I would mention that if you take a look at the floor plan, it shows there's a rear emergency egress door, but I don't see that door depicted in the elevations. And if you take a look at the existing door in the neighboring building, the finished floor level is high enough that whatever door evacuates, there's going to have to be some kind of a porch landing, those kind of things out there. So there will be additional work, in my opinion, on the rear facade that are not depicted currently at the current drawings. The drawing sheets also indicate a privacy fence that shows up on the floor plan, and there's also a detail. The proposed fencing includes 4x4 pressure-treated posts at 5 feet on center and a 7 feet tall fencing, which are composed of 5/4 by 6 wood slats that are oriented horizontally. All wooden components are stained in black color. There is a similar detail on the other side of the adjacent former firehouse building. I could not find record that HCC approved that, however, so I'm not really sure how you want to deal with that. So he's repeating a detail that exists on the other adjacent property, assuming that was appropriate. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I couldn't find record that the fencing on the adjacent property was actually ever reviewed and approved. And finally, the computer-generated view that we have in your packet and was shown includes signage and exterior lighting. But I don't think the applicant is here to discuss those. So but just a reminder that those kind of things will require a subsequent review. So we don't need to spend any time tonight talking about those things. So again, to reverse, I ordered my assessment based on the front facade. I mentioned what meets what HCC required previously and therefore is appropriate. A couple things didn't get discussed previously, so they need discussion. In my opinion, the main discussion are a lot of the things going on with the additions that, yes, appear in the three-dimensional computer rendering, but were never discussed in detail by HCC, and I could not find any resolutions on.
Okay.
And then finally, the rear and the smaller side drawing were helpful, but I saw a few missing pieces.
Okay. Yeah, quite a few items to.
It's a
go over.
complicated project. It's deceiving. It looks easy on paper, but there's a lot going on.
Well, John, I mean, it looks like a tremendous amount of effort and the design that's gone into this. I would say, in addition to, Jeffrey's talking about, for some of these new finish items that we're looking at, such as the metal panel range screen and I think the porcelain tile's new too, right?
Well, the porcelain tile is specifically to try and mimic the material that surrounds that existing storefront in a way that is a little bit more permanent and long lasting.
Okay.
And what's there right now is a matte black finish. As near as I can tell, it's some sort of framed metal panel. The detailing of it's pretty shoddy. Of course, the whole building has to come down. I mean, we came here originally with the intent, and this is several years ago, with the intent to try and salvage some of that building and build onto it. But when some of the selective demolition was done inside, the structure there was terrible. And we met at the time on site with Chris Usler and Darlene, and we all agreed there was nothing there that was capable and reasonably so of being salvaged. So
Okay.
removing the structure, and of course, we've met a lot of the requirements, trying to reuse existing. I think the front elevation we've met, other than the transom, we've met all the requirements of the May 17th and September whatever meetings.
I'm trying to remember too, did we advise you to divide up the new openings with a frame the way you're showing it? But we did advise that, okay.
Well, it was to match the other side, the 217 Broadway side. And that was a large bifolding door will be created in place of form of display window and secondary. There will be 2 doors on each side, and each panel will be divided into 5 lights as shown in the drawings.
Okay. Well, let's maybe try and go through things as best as we can in the order that Jeffrey presented them. I think I was going to say actual finished samples of some of these new things we're being presented with is helpful. I think I think the
We
commission.
we submitted 2 samples along with our application. So
Oh, and it just didn't make it here tonight.
Darlene brought them, to our meeting with Jeff. Darlene presented them at that meeting with Jeff, and I guess didn't
Okay.
bring them tonight.
Are they examples of what?
The metal siding and the stucco.
It's attached to, it's not attached to that. I'll see if it's down in there.
Oh, okay. Can you also tell us, so one of the items is there's a lot of EPDM roof. Granted, it's going to be up high. It's
Yeah, the
low
picture
slope.
that I took was basically elevation wise as high as I could get within let's call it a half-mile radius. The entire view of anything from taken uphill is, we're talking up on South Mountain.
Mhm.
The view that I took is as far as I could get up Broadhead. And you can plainly see from that view right there, you're not going to see one iota of that EPDM roof that's up there.
Yeah.
You may see some of the lower roof, the standing seam metal roof down low. You may see a thin sliver of that from that angle, but you can plainly see that when you get up to the eave line of the existing, you're going to see nothing past that flat eave.
Yeah,
Not even close.
Mhm. I don't doubt what you're saying, but I
Well, the
think
picture
because-
proves it. The picture
Yeah.
I submitted with the application.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jeffrey's assessment that it's more typical in our district to have a parapet at that kind of condition. So I think, yeah, EPDM is okay, but in this case,
Well,
continue
your
the
ordinance
parapet.
specifically says that can be viewed by the public. Public cannot view that.
Okay.
We're nowhere near a high enough elevation to be able to see down on that roof
Okay.
From the
It's-
street level.
it's a
And
recommendation.
creating parapets on a flat roof such as this just creates nightmares, snow buildup, drifting. That would be a bad move.
Well, it's a
especially because your
recommendation.
ordinance specifically says public view. We're not in public view. You cannot see that roof. Putting a parapet up there would do nothing but create nightmares for the owner.
Mhm.
My opinion.
Sure, sure, and that's important. What about, so you have a new set of steel exit stairs?
Yeah, with the design of the interior, we had to get a second means of egress out of the upper level of the building. And we did not want to go to the rear because of the layout inside. We have the rear area set up with, a stage or possibly a band in the back.
Okay.
So we did not want to put anything at the rear. So we chose the small alcove that is framed by the metal paneled stair tower. That's what that metal panel area is solely a stair tower, going up and also going down to the basement. And then over on the other side, the rear side, the large stucco panel on the right-hand side of the elevation, that is all housing toilet rooms and interior stair access in one area. So we felt the best place to put that stair was in that alcove on the side.
I don't think we received a second floor plan, right?
There's one here if you want one.
That'd be great, thank you. Yeah, because it looks like the fence doesn't show up on the elevation.
No, I just want to show something that would block what you need to see.
Okay, thank you.
Here, toilet rooms, and then blank wall.
Well, your exit doors are kind of close together, aren't they?
They are far enough apart to be considered reasonably remote.
They must just meet the code requirement, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we submitted some time ago, but they're sort of on hold at city,
Okay.
in there till we get through with this.
Well, it looks like the site plan would allow you to put the stair in the back. I mean, I see there's a thin sliver along the parking. Anyway, that's per your job. I'm just trying to find a way to
With
hide
the
that.
number of stairs and the fact you have to have a landing, you can't rise or run over 12 feet. We would have to have a mid landing in there somewhere. We have no room to do that.
Yeah. What about continuing the enclosure around it? Oh, great. Thank you.
We really don't want to enclose that stair. We want to keep it in tune with the matching stair that's on the other side of the same building, the 217 side. We're trying to pick up some of the flavor so that we have a building that has some tie together. That building has an exterior fire escape, for lack of a better term. Also has that same fence detail that we're looking at enclosing back here. So we would prefer not to enclose that stair.
Mhm.
Vehemently prefer not to enclose that stair.
Do you have a sample of the porcelain tile at the front?
No, I was unable to get that in time.
Okay.
It's just a matte black porcelain tile, just straight matte black, just like the
Yeah.
metal panel there.
Yeah, it looks, it looks like it's going to be a great way to finish things. I think it is also a little unusual for a district, and that's why I think would be just good for the commission to see it. Can you talk about the standing seam roof you are planning to use?
Standing seam roof would be black to match the siding. Flat black.
Okay,
And as far as windows or openings on the side of the building, which was something that Jeffrey had brought up, obviously we want to try and bring some light into the side of the building.
Yeah.
Basically into the stair towers there is all we brought it in, is the stair tower. So there's, on that side, there's a single door, which is, well, single door on both levels, which is my exit door. And then there are three windows in the stair tower, one high and two low, one in the front and two on the side.
Jeffrey, I don't recall, why was it an issue to add additional windows to that side?
It's not clear. It says the only 2 windows around the corner to match the front, and that was limited.
Okay, all right.
If I recall, that's going 5 years or 4 years at this point, it's a while
Long
ago.
time ago.
And we've gone through quite a few different schemes for this particular project. And at the time that we went in, we were not proposing any doors or windows on that side. I know some of the iterations that we had done at some point did have quite a few windows on that side. But if I recall right, we had not proposed any, so that's probably why it's in there, but going from 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Lucky to remember what I had for breakfast this morning.
yeah, I know what you mean. And I apologize. You know, I think in shuffling around samples and all that, I was a little bit distracted, but explain again why leave that stair A open?
We're looking at creating the same look that we already have on the left side of 217.
Okay.
We have an existing steel stair, iron stair, whatever you want to call it, on that side, and we wanted to copy it on the right-hand side. We do not want to encourage use of that stair other than as an emergency egress. Our fear is if we enclose that stair, it's going to
Yeah.
encourage use. There's been
Yeah.
issues here. It is a club close to the university, and
Sure.
they've had issues with people opening doors and letting people in. We're very cognizant of the fact that that happens. And the problem is we have to have emergency egress.
Yeah.
We have to have the exits. And how do we control those exits? And if we enclose all our stairs, that's a major problem. If it's an open stair, weather's inclement, people are less inclined to use it, other than obviously an emergency, which is what it's for. If we leave it open, it's very obvious when an exterior door opens as opposed to a simple interior stair door. So there's a number of reasons that, unfortunately, we have to have that second means of egress, and there's a number of reasons why we do not want to enclose that stair.
Okay.
Inviting major issues, which he's had before.
Well, you know, on the plus side, you know, I think that you're making it out of steel construction is great. You know, we often approve stairs on residential projects here out of pressure treated, and you know, I think at least that way it's probably going to hold up well. And you know, I don't see it as something that's really you know, not appropriate.
So if we talk about the pressure treated, we will be planning on putting a stair of the exact, you know, similar construction to what we have at the existing 217. So addressing the missing rear exit, which is basically an exit out of the basement and an exit out of the kitchen. We plan on using the exact same construction as exists in the back of 217 now.
The windows that you're adding to this, can you tell what kind of windows are they? Are they divided lights? You show the buttons as single lines. Is what's going on?
Which,
you know, any of these-
yeah, what we, and I believe with the package, we submitted, they make, Huts Glass is actually who we're looking at using on those. They make a an aluminum frame window, a thermally broken aluminum frame window, which then also has a look to it. We've used it on several historical factories, and they have a very narrow line in between to
Okay.
try and mimic the old steel windows that are
Okay.
prevalent in so many factories. And that's what we're planning on doing with the windows here.
Great.
I think the package, it may have been the revised package, has that cut sheets in there.
Yeah, it's probably buried here, but if someone has it out, I'd like to see it.
Jerry, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Craig.
And it may just be that I didn't interpret the drawing properly, but I would like to know if there are provisions for some sort of trash corral or disposal area, and where that would be and how it would be handled.
It's going to stay exactly where it is now, which is in the back of 217. This, basically, all we're doing is, this is an addition to the existing operation of 217. So
Okay, so it's
we're
not gonna-
expanding the existing kitchen to be able to do different things, pizza oven, that sort of thing, expanding the existing hood a little bit. So those operations stay as existing.
Okay.
Proposing any new trash.
I just wanted clarification that that's okay that it's where, that you're using the existing. I just didn't know if there was anything additional.
Is this going to be a fully sprinkler building now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 217 currently is, and it was sized, the main is big enough. I think it's a 3-inch main that came in there.
Okay.
And it was a new main that we brought in specifically for the 217 project.
Okay.
Figuring that at some point we were hoping to be able to get this property next door.
Yeah.
The size here is really, we've sized this to try and take advantage of, Mr. Salamone is in negotiations, has been for a number of years, to buy that adjacent lot. And basically, the size of this addition is predicated on being able to obtain that lot. So if something happens, something falls through, then obviously we have to make some changes here. But in which case we're back to square one with you guys again. But the overall look here is going to stay the same. We just need to basically compress things a little bit, and we definitely need to have that lot next door to make that work.
Sorry. I thought I had recalled, one of the few things I recall from several meetings back, there were some questions about the ownership of the lot next door. I mean, what I see is you have 20 feet of building, and then the city of Bethlehem's parking starts, but then you're saying in your plans that you're going 4.5 feet into the Bethlehem Parking Authority's lot.
That's the lot I'm speaking of.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
And we have adequate room. We would change that into a one-way drive, a one-way 18-foot drive with 20-foot parking spaces.
Okay. Anybody have some further questions or comments on this? Yeah, and here's the samples here. So what we got, Jeffrey, is two samples of the metal panel and an EFA sample. Drive it, I mean, same thing.
And just to clear up, while the sample itself is Drive It, we plan on using Drive It material as our finish coat on a standard stucco system. I'm a big fan of that system because it gives us the strength of a standard stucco system, but also the elastomeric qualities of EFS.
So it's what, like cement plaster on lath?
It's a standard cement plaster system, 2-coat, 5/8 inch cement plaster system. with galvanized self-burning wired lath, and we just simply drive it on as a finished coat.
Okay.
So that if you get the inevitable spider cracks, little thin cracks that you get in a standard stucco system, that the EFS finish has a 600% elastomeric quality to it that'll hopefully bridge some of those spider cracks as they appear later on in age.
Okay. I don't know if there's anyone from the public here, but the floor is open for comments from the public. Doesn't look like it.
I have a concern, Gary.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I understood what John just said, if the ownership of that lot is not cleared or doesn't change from the parking authority to this property owner, then all of this decision process on these components of the building is null and void, and we'll have to do something else. So my concern, I guess, is really whether or not there's a likelihood of that negotiation being resolved in favor of the 217 property owner. I'm just not clear on what we're approving, and if we approve a demolition, is the demolition going to happen regardless of whether the ownership of the lot changes? Or are we going to have something in limbo for another 5 years until the property? I'm just snagging at 5 years. It could be 5 months or it could be 10 years. But I'm just not clear on what we would be looking to authorize.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. The issue with the city, and again, this is what I'm told. I'm not privy to all the negotiations that
Right.
happen, but I'm told that there is an agreement in place right now. They're looking at how to finish the agreement. It is kind of a cart before the horse. We need to get the approval of the project so that we can move forward with sale of the lot. Without this, we can't get the other. And the intent, if things on the lot fall apart, is to scale back the project, but all of the features and things that we're passing here today, we would anticipate carrying over into the new project. Obviously, it'd be a skinnier project. And we fully agree that we would need to come back here if the projects change substantially from what we have now. That's
I
no
just wanted
problem.
to be clear. I wanted to be clear on how
Yeah,
that
it's-
process worked, because it is our policy to only approve demolition when we have assurance that the replacement, or that in fact there will be a replacement.
And that's the submission of the foundation
Okay.
plans. So the board has already, in my understanding, has already approved the demolition of the building. We don't intend on demolishing the building unless we're moving forward with the project. There's no,
Okay.
and the problem again is cart before the horse thing. We need to
Right.
jump over this hurdle first to get over that hurdle. The agreement's in place, but the agreement's contingent upon these things. It's contingent upon time. It's got other contingencies that, again, I wasn't part and parcel of the negotiation, so I can't really testify to any of
Okay.
that stuff. But I do know that we have to get through in phases, and this is the next phase to be able to close on that phase.
All right, I think I'm going to help move things along by offering up a motion. I would like to make a motion for 215 Broadway to accept the design as presented to us with the following stipulations. The black mat porcelain tile will be presented. A sample will be brought in for approval by Jeffrey and myself. The new windows being proposed, I find acceptable. I think I would like to know more about the detailing on the metal panels, but let's leave that for now. I am suggesting in this motion that the roofs be kept consistent, so that the standing seam is appropriate with the black finish. I would say for the higher roofs, even if they're going to be impossible to see, I think consider two options. Either doing a parapet around it because you want to keep it EPDM and maybe drain it to the back, or maybe make it standing seam. I think I'm going to offer either of those two options. In terms of the steel stairs, I find that appropriate since it's going to be fenced in. I know we've approved pressure treated fencing before. In addition, keep in mind that new windows, new glass, we don't allow tinted or reflected glass, though I think low E is required by code. So we've the proposed stucco we've approved in the past, so I think that's fine. I don't see any other items.
Fence design,
The fence design, okay.
matching 217.
I think that's fine.
Just want to make sure we get that part of the motion.
Okay, all right. All right, did that seem to cover everything, John?
I think so. I'm not real keen on the EPDM because
I know you're
the
not.
best solution,
Yep.
and it's not visible, and your ordinance specifically says visible from the public. It's not visible
Okay.
from the public.
There's a motion on the floor. Does anybody care to second it?
Gary, do we want to just add to that demolition would be contingent upon, all the financials and negotiations being complete?
Right, well, John, I think you understand from the past that we don't allow demolition until you have a fully approved set of drawings.
I think it should be in the motion.
You can make it a part of the motion. That's fine.
Yeah.
I have no issues with that.
Okay, and sounds good, Ken. Okay,
What we want to do is have a big hole out there and no project, so
right.
no issues.
You have enough of those.
Okay, so motion on the table. Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. All in favor? Craig Evans,
Aye.
Ken Lausch,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
aye. Seth?
Nay.
Okay. Chaz?
Aye.
And Seth, up to you if you care to elaborate.
I voted nay 4 years ago. I
Okay.
believed that 4 years ago this project wasn't appropriate. And I don't
Okay.
think it's really gotten any better.
Okay. Understood. And I think that's just, it's important to state that for the record. So thank you. All right. So with that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too, John.
Can I stay here for the next one too?
Hey, it's better than reality TV. That's why I always say.
That was nice. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That looks like a great project.
We're hoping.
You'll hear from me if it isn't.
Okay, is the applicant now still 201 Broadway. Oh, hi, how you doing?
I'm wonderful, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Would you be Karen?
I'm Karen Greenlee. I'm here for Pro Science and Speedway.
Great. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Item agenda number 3, 201 Broadway. This structure is a one-story commercial building with a flat roof and metal siding. There is also a flat roof canopy over the existing gas pumps with the company logo on multiple sides. Dating from circa 1975, the building is utilitarian in style and is non-contributing to the Historic Conservation District. There is also an existing pylon sign for the gas station with 2 internally illuminated acrylic pricer faces beneath the station logo. Proposed alterations, it is proposed to replace existing signage. Citations used for my assessment include Secretary of Interior Standards number 9 that I've cited the previous 2 agenda items, the ordinance that Mr. Lader read at the beginning of tonight's meeting, as well as the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines for signage. My evaluation and recommendations. The certificate appropriateness application indicates the intent to replace existing pricer fields on both sides of the pylon sign with 2 new pricer fields, along with 1 new digital toggle field on each sign face. The existing company logos on the pylon sign on the sides of the canopy and the front of the facade of the commercial building are to remain. The 2 new fields of digital figures for the per gallon pricing on the pylon each measure 14 inches high, while 1 new field of digital letters that toggles between the message, quote, with pay card and also the message without pay card are in all uppercase lettering measuring 9 inches high. The new digital figures and letters are to be internally illuminated with red LED lights. Relevant design guidelines for signage indicate that, quote, HCC will not recommend for approval signage with internal fluorescent lighting and sign faces, as well as signs that move, flash, or are intermittently illuminated, end quote. The proposed new signage would toggle between the differing per gallon prices depending upon the message with pay card or without pay card, as that toggles in the new message field. Similar HCC reviews in 2011, 2014, and again in 2015 resulted in certificates of appropriateness that did allow for internal illumination, even though that goes against the ordinance. Justification was that this building does not contribute to the district. However, the previous signage included digital pricer fields on each sign face that remained static. The current proposal would toggle between messages and the associated price per gallon, and in my opinion would therefore be inappropriate based on the design guidelines for signage within the district.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey, was that it? Oh, okay. Apologies. Okay, Karen, tell us about your project.
Okay, so this is a speedway, and we would like to, pretty much exactly what was stated is we would like to take that pricer face that is existing in the freestanding sign and change it with a sort of a new style that Speedway is going with. And so it does have the toggle bar and then smaller price digits so that you can have the different prices for the different fuel products. I would like to mention that it does not flash. It doesn't scroll. It is an instant movement. It's not intermittent in any way. It's not, it's just saying the words and then it says different words. It is instantaneous changing.
How
And
long
so-
is the exposure for each one?
So it's the toggle interval is programmable. And I know that in Bethlehem, in a commercial district, the minimum is 6 seconds. And so Speedway, depending on the code in the district that we're in, can go anywhere from, I think the fastest they've done was 8 seconds to maybe 10 or 12, I think is the sort of the slower district or interval.
Okay.
But it's programmable, so that way we are in line with your requirements.
Okay. Anything else?
Not unless anyone has a question.
All right. I guess I thought, is part of this also to add new sign to the canopy?
No.
Okay. My mistake. So we are just looking at the I guess the pylon sign.
Yes. And just so everyone is clear, and I know it's not, it has been a little difficult to see, unfortunately. So just so everybody knows, this is a program that we're doing about 150 sites. So this drawing is somewhat generic in that it is just the face and it doesn't show the actual hinge for the retainer. There should be an addendum that I want to say a secondary cut sheet. I'll say there you go.
Okay.
That's it.
Got it.
Where it explains a little bit better. This photograph and this mock-up is really just sort of for what it would look like as opposed to construction. So it is difficult to see, but we are not doing anything to the sign except for removing the face. So that's the entire top cabinet and the face, the whole bottom cabinet, the structure, the foundation, the overall square footage, the electrical, none of that is changing. We're literally just lifting up the face and putting this new style of face in. And so this new style is just something that Speedway is rolling out because they have a price member card, and so they wanted to advertise the lower price for if you're a member of their with their price card.
Okay.
So just so I know it is a little difficult to see exactly what the scope is, but if that's all it is,
Okay.
it's the face.
Very good. Thank you for explaining that. Jeffrey, I was wondering if, based on what Karen said about setting the intervals for how the sign toggles, does that change at all your feeling about how appropriate it is?
Yes. It's not about how I feel. I have to read the guidelines. I can quote them to you again, and then the commission can determine if that's appropriate or not. Thank you. It says HTC will not recommend for approval signage with internal fluorescent lights, which it has. So already HTC has gone against its own guidelines.
Okay.
It continues the sign faces as well as signs, will not approve signs that move, flash, or are intermittently illuminated. These were written pre-LED, so I have no specifics about, how quick or how slow LEDs toggle between messages. So I agree it's a matter of interpretation.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for clarifying
Sure.
that. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so, I think it's up to us as a commission then, based on what Jeffrey said, it's a non-conforming sign, it's an existing condition. We're making it a little bit, I think we'd be making it even less conforming by adding this additional signage to it. So that, that's what we're going to have to talk about and make a decision on.
Harry, I think personally, based on the fact that we had approved the original sign, I realize this is a little bit different,
Yeah.
but this is a gas station too. So, it's not that it is contributing a whole lot to the district.
Right.
So I would be inclined to approve this.
Would you want to stipulate the interval? I think it was helpful that Karen said, yeah, you could really slow it down so you're not seeing a message changing every couple of seconds.
I would not.
Okay.
If anybody else wants to, that's
Right.
fine, but
Yeah, that
I
doesn't
have
seem like
no
it
clue
matters.
as to what would be
Yeah.
acceptable to.
I agree.
I have read quite a few different, and I'm not saying that that should have any bearing on this hearing at all, but I have read quite a few different codes and quite a few different municipalities, townships, cities, and boroughs all across Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. So the last thing that we would want to do would be to cause a traffic hazard, which I believe is something that most people are concerned about, having the things flash. So I would just like to make very clear that it does not flash. It's completely instantaneous. And after 8-10 seconds, it's not like scary. It's not going to, jump out at anyone or distract anyone, driving wise. So that is something that we are very cognizant of. And we want to make sure that, everyone is safe, obviously. But it's enough of a change so that way you can look at the sign and then have it change and you can see that there's two. So that is our intent, if that's helpful.
And Karen, in doing this work, it looks like you'd be removing existing fluorescent lighting and replacing it with LEDs.
No. So this is an LED sign as it is, and so it will stay an LED sign.
Okay.
Clarify the upper portion.
Oh,
Behind the logo.
oh, okay, I see. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, great.
So that was part of the original sign, I would imagine. Generally, things that our company does is LEDs now, just for it's a lot lighter in weight, and it is safer.
Is this design going to be used in all the HEF stations, across the state?
Yeah. So as you know, Speedway acquired Hess a little
Yeah.
while ago, and so that's part of our it's phase 4, yay, of Speedway. But so we're doing quite a few projects all up and down. And I've had to go to other hearings, and this is one of the last few that we have, but we've already started doing them. So if you drive over to Exton, which is where I'm from, you'll be able to see one, and there it goes, and it looks
There it
great.
is.
So,
Okay.
yeah, they'll be popping up. You'll be able to see them, and you'll go, oh, I know that.
What is the most frequent? What interval is most common?
Between 8 and 10 seconds is most common.
Okay, so the 6-second limit in the city of Bethlehem.
Is actually the fastest I've ever heard.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Great.
I think so long as it's 8 seconds or greater, we would be fine.
Yes.
Great.
A second.
Okay, and I'm waiting for the motion if somebody could.
I thought Ken made them.
Oh,
I guess it wasn't official, but
go ahead.
what I said before was the motion. That we would approve this as submitted. And in light of what Craig said, that we would have no faster than an 8-second interval.
That works for Karen. Good.
Second.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And Roger, you seconded that
Yeah.
motion? Okay. And we'll put it to vote now. Craig?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Seth?
Aye.
Kaz?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else for me to do now?
So a certificate of appropriateness will be issued and your permit will be ready following the next commission meeting.
City council actually meets tomorrow, but there's no way
City
these,
council.
so it'll be at city council 2 weeks from tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, Darlene. And usually a day or two thereafter is when the certificates are issued.
Okay.
If your name and contact information appears on the application, you'll receive it in writing in the mail.
Okay.
With that in hand, someone comes to zoning to retrieve the associated permit.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, because I did already apply with Craig Pfeiffer. So
Correct.
okay, all right.
Okay.
All right. Well, great.
Have a good night.
Well, I hope y'all have a great night too.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
You.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay. Do we have the applicants here for 321 Wyandotte Street, the Cathedral Church? Please announce your names.
Sure, I'm Richard Sauce. I'm with the Cathedral Church of the Nativity.
I'm Micah Mutchler. I'm with Architera. We're landscape architects.
I'm sorry, Mike, how you say your last name?
Mutchler.
And thank you for joining us this evening. Jeffrey, when you're ready.
Agenda item number 4, 321 Wyandotte Street. This structure is a stone church with a south-facing gable with a rose window, a steeply pitched slate roof, and a gable transept. The current transept was the original church and dates from 1864, while the current nave was constructed in 1887. The church is Gothic Revival in style. Proposed alteration: it is proposed to install a sign at the corner of Wyandotte Street and West 3rd Street. The sign consists of a single-sided aluminum sign with masonry support elements, as well as sign lighting and electrical work associated for the illumination. Citations I used for my assessment include Secretary of Interior Standards number 9, which I've cited in all the previous agenda items, the Bethlehem Ordinance that Mr. Lader cited at the beginning of tonight's meeting, the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines for signage, which I referenced in the previous item, as well as the Conservation Commission design guidelines concerning new construction that I cited in agenda item number 2. My evaluation and recommendations: the Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to install a new sign measuring 3 feet and 10 inches high by 15 feet and 8 inches wide by 6 inches deep, integrated within a new freestanding masonry wall construction that measures approximately 9 feet high by 19 feet wide by 2 feet and 10 inches deep at the greatest dimensions. The painted aluminum sign proposed is red in color and includes the Episcopal Church shield at the left. The shield measures 29 inches high by 23 inches wide and has details in white, blue, and red colors, and is outlined in black color. It also includes 2 rows of text, each measuring 12 inches high. The top line, Cathedral Church, is followed by of the Nativity. They're all in combination uppercase and lowercase serif lettering in white color. Top, sides, and rear of the aluminum sign are also to be painted red in color with no logo or lettering. The proposed sign to be installed on the cast stone wall cap atop masonry wall construction with a natural stone veneer, quote, to match the to match the cathedral architectural elements, end quote. And also flush left with a masonry column with cast stone column cap and a natural stone veneer, yet again, quote, to match the cathedral architectural elements, end quote. The front of the sign is to be illuminated by a freestanding linear grazing luminaire that's approximately 1 foot tall and then installed approximately 3 feet in front of the new wall construction. Proposed lighting is accomplished with 4,000 Kelvin LED light bulbs. The new signage is appropriate as proposed with the following modifications. I suggest reducing the size of the proposed sign in the freestanding wall construction. And I don't pretend to know how much of a reduction. I'm just stating right now my observations. Although the 60 square feet sign area complies with the zoning ordinance, and that's clearly stated on the drawing sheet, the zoning allows either 2 signs at 50 square feet each, or 1 sign up to 100 square feet because it faces 2 major arteries. So it does meet zoning as is, but the applicant provides a supplemental photo montage that's best indicated on drawing sheet 3, the top right image. That photo montage confirms that the views of several defining architectural features of the contributing structure would be obstructed by the proposed sign. And wall construction, and in my opinion, violates Secretary of Interior standards that, quote, "View work shall be compatible with the historic size, scale, and proportion and massing to protect the integrity of the historic property and its environment," end quote. So that's my interpretation of how, at least based on the provided photo montage, this potentially conflicts with that or violates that standard based on the fact of how it obstructs the view of the historic property. In addition, I would request that the bright white within the sign be changed to a warm white or an ivory so that it more reflects the appropriate colors within the district. I would request that there would be an offset pinstripe detail around the entire perimeter of the sign in a complementary color. It could be white, the ivory, it could be the blue or black, something elsewhere about the sign. But typically when we request a pinstripe detail, that means that the rest of the sign might need to be resized slightly so it fits within that, what I'll call a frame around the sign. The cast stone elements should be tan or warm gray in color rendition and not a cold gray. Sometimes they can be really kind of concrete looking and fake. And the existing cast stone on the church all have kind of a warm color to them. So I'd request that you search cast elements that have a warm tone. Also, the natural stone veneer, I don't know the product being proposed, but many of you have seen this. Stone veneers don't have much dimension to them, and the drawing provided is a front facade, but each one of those stones has to turn the corner. Now, some veneers have corner elements, and I don't pretend to know that product you're choosing. But if you take the drawing to heart the way it is, as soon as you turn the corner, you're going to have these thin little lines on either side because the veneer is exactly that. It's a veneer. So it might give the appearance of the church, but the stone is true stone. Excuse me, the church is true stone construction. So there needs to be some kind of a detail or product to ensure that as these stones turn the corner, they give the impression having dimension to them rather than just, a 3/4 inch or an inch dimension to them. Relevant design guidelines for signage do not address freestanding linear lighting. They talk about small scale individual or hidden fixtures, and we see them all the time, goose lamps, or those little lights attached below or on top of the sign. So I don't have anything to go on with the lamps they're proposing. They are freestanding linear grazing luminaire, so they stand proud of the sign about 3 feet. They're about 1 foot tall, and it's one bar with a series of LEDs. If HCC determines that the proposed lighting is appropriate, the color temperature should be limited to maximum 3,000 Kelvin. That's what we've been utilizing in the historic district. That's on the warmer color spectrum rather than the 4,000 or 5,000, which are kind of a blue, almost industrial on the color spectrum. So those are my recommendations for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on Jeffrey's comments?
One thing I want to respond to, the mention of the stone veneer being thin when it goes around the corners. We call in here in the detail, we call for this, it's a natural stone, it's being a 6-inch deep stone. So it's not a thin stone veneer. It's a true, real stone, is what we're proposing for here.
Oh,
So at
okay.
6 inches, turning the corners, you won't get a thin veneer.
Oh, okay. So
We want a
it-
real
It
stone.
will really look like stone wrapping around it.
So, yeah, you won't see that thin effect when you wrap around the corners.
Is it possible, before, I guess when you get further along, usually we like to see actual samples. Is it possible to get a sample of the stone you're going to use?
I believe. Well, I think it's possible. We have some stone that we have on the property that's from past, projects and things we could look at. I think it's possible to do that. We haven't thought that far ahead, but.
Okay.
The comment about the warm light, I don't have an objection to that. I think,
Yeah.
I agree with that. We probably don't want bright white with this.
And the color of the cast stone, I think is.
The cast stone, we picked a cool gray because we were essentially matching other elements within the site. I think there's quite a range. If the veneer cast stone adjacent to this, and the architecture is more of a warm. I don't think we're really objecting to that. This graphic, part of what I shown there is so it reads, so you can see it. But as far as the cool gray, we don't have an objection.
I think that the masonry is intended to match the existing masonry, so I think
Essentially, we tried to make this look
what you're saying makes
match
sense.
other
yeah.
elements there. The pinstripe edge around the edge of the sign, I don't think that's something we're really interested in. We like just the solid redness of this. Don't see the need for that pinstripe.
And the color of the white, I think we picked the color of the white is actually matches the white in the shield. It should. I don't know that we have too many options there. The colors in the shield are specified. The red that's there is also a specified color for the Episcopal Church. They have standards, and we're trying to use their standards. And so I don't know how much flexibility we have on the white of the letters.
Right. And was that a
Jeffrey,
comment?
Just a question for Jeffrey. I thought one of the things we usually do is when something is part of a company identity or logo, and I don't know if color white falls into this. Don't we usually allow it in that situation?
It is true that company logos are as accepted. We asked that question, and if the applicant confirms the graphic is a company logo, then that's accepted, no questions.
So
I also want to state that the bright white versus the warm white is simply a recommendation.
Right.
It's not defined in the guidelines. It's just to be in compliance with most of the signage that's within the historic district on contributing structures.
Yeah, and that's what you should understand too, is, that's a design standard in our district. Understood of, the white is part of, I mean, it's a church, but corporate identity, quote unquote.
You don't want to go against the CEO.
Right.
But so I think whatever the white is in the shield is the same white that we use in the letters.
As far as the size of the sign, I mean, we want visibility, we want legibility. The capital letters on this are 12 inches tall. We've done some playing around with multiple designs with the cathedral and their design board, and this is the sign that we ended up coming to, incorporating the Episcopal shield as part of this sign area. As one, we don't want to, if you look at the way we interpret the code, you could go up to 100 square feet. We're not doing that. We feel that the scale of this is appropriate, legible. As far as some of the architectural elements that may be blocking, and you can still see these lower arches coming down walkways from the sign. The sign is set out roughly halfway between the church and the walkway. So it's not on top of these things. You can still see these elements from different vantage points.
Could I make a suggestion as far as that goes? First of all, I want to say it is a beautiful design, and it looks like everything is very high quality about the construction and the design and so on. The church, of course, is a jewel in our district, and here's my suggestion. I think if you place the sign itself on some kind of post or standoffs, maybe, I don't know what the right dimension is, but I'm thinking if you could just raise it 8 inches, maybe something like 8 inches off the cast stone base and 8 inches from the side. I think by doing that, it would make the whole thing less solid and still allow views to the building beyond it. And perhaps in the process, you could shrink the sign down just a little bit. Maybe the height's the same, but that's my suggestion, maybe to keep, so you could still get a very visible sign, and from that direction, I know you're trying to address car traffic, so it's clear to people that, what church this is, but, I think it's also important, one of the things we always struggle with is maintaining the streetscape and not obstructing, not changing way the streetscape is experienced or obstructing important architectural features. I'll offer that to you.
Well, we went through a process where we had the landscape architect 2 years ago. They probably gave us 6 or 7 different alternate types of major identification signs for this location. And this was by far the one that all of our group, we had about 10 people look at it, preferred. So it was something of a unanimous choice. I'm sure they can look at adding that space in there to see if that changes or makes it less solid. But this was actually something that the group
Oh,
like
I could
amongst-
imagine how much
amongst
time and-
many choices that we looked at.
Yeah, I can imagine how much time, thought, and effort went into this.
Oh, yeah. Have the elderly ladies been made aware of this sign?
Yes.
Usually the old ladies, the
Every-
ladies' aides make
every-
more decisions, and if they approved it, we're gonna have a rough time.
Everyone has seen it, unfortunately, in a draft form, of course, before we got to this stage, kind of in a concept stage. But this is pretty much the concept that was looked at.
How is the lighting bar affected by like accumulated snow and so on?
Well,
Does that have to be cleared? Will that melt off on its own? How is it going to affect the lighting on the
I
sign?
think if there was a significant amount of snowfall, some would have to be cleared. It's an LED fixture, so it really shouldn't be generating much heat. So it really won't do much melting of the snow on its own. A large reason for why we had it elevated 12 inches is we didn't want to cast a shadow from the lower masonry wall blocking part of the red signage and letters on the sign. We do have Lurai planted in front of it, which is about 12 to 18 inches high, so that the fixtures themselves are a little less visible from the road.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry again. I didn't see, is there cuts in this set for the light fixtures? Oh, I see it now. Okay. And you say it ends up being eight inches high?
We had it mounted approximately a foot. The grade varies is sloping along this area here. But we set it to be, I believe, about 7 inches below the top of the coping. And that's to prevent a shadow line. On our sheet 1, there's a side cross section, bottom, middle
Oh, I see
plan.
now. Okay.
That's one of the best visual ideas of how this compares to the sign.
Hey, any other thoughts or comments from the commission?
I'd like to make a motion, Gary. I'd like to make a motion. We approve this sign as presented.
I'll second that.
Would you care to insert into that motion my suggestion for putting space around the bottom and the side to make it a little less solid?
The applicant has the option of adding extra space around to make it less solid.
Okay. Right. Anyone care to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chaz.
Got it.
Okay, and we shall put it to a vote. Craig
Aye.
Evans. Ken Lausch.
Aye.
Roger Hudak.
I,
I vote aye. Seth.
Aye.
Chaz.
Aye.
Thank you. Carries unanimously. Thank you both for.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I like it.
Uh, Okay, and that brings us to our last agenda item for the evening, which is is this right? 3032 East Third?
32.
32 East Third. Okay, oh, it's probably supposed to be two numbers, right? 30-32?
Yeah, it's a hyphen
That
as
is two
opposed to.
Okay. And Michael, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. My name is Mike Metzger. I'm with Alloy 5 Architects, and we are the architect and partial owner of this project.
So Gary, you're right, it's correct. It's 30 to 32 East Third Street.
Okay.
We have an existing building at 30, and sometimes it's called an addition, sometimes it's called an infill, sometimes it's called new construction at 32 East Third Street. I'm not saying the applicant calls it that, but various iterations have called it that. Building description, period style, and defining features. The existing structure at 30 East Third Street is a semi-detached, 3-story, 3-bay masonry building with highly decorative upper cornice and a flat roof that dates from circa 1910. Originally conceived as a department store for the C.P. Hoffman and Company, it later served as a commercial location for Sears and Roebuck Company, and then for the Goodman Furniture, which is the source of its current name. The structure is classical revival in style, with primary facade materials of cast stone at the front or north upper levels, and a mid-20th century aluminum frame storefront at the entry level. The adjacent structure at 32 East 3rd Street was destroyed by a fire in 1982. The resulting demolition work exposed brick masonry along the east side wall of 30 East 3rd Street, which is still visible today. Post alterations, it is proposed to install a new roof and metal flashings, as well as replace and paint existing trim. That has to do with the existing building. And then the second portion of the agenda description, the new addition includes a 4-story mixed-use masonry-clad building with massing to complement the existing adjacent Goodman building. The new addition will provide a commercial/retail/restaurant space on the first floor with 12 apartment units on the levels above. The various guideline citations I use for my assessment include Secretary of Interior Standards number 1, concerning the use of a historic property. Number 2, concerning the historic character of an existing property to be retained and preserved. Number 4, concerning changes to a property that have acquired historic significance over time. Number 5, concerning distinctive materials, features, and finishes. Number 6, concerning deteriorated historic features. Number 9, that I've cited in all the previous agenda items. The Bethlehem ordinance that Mr. Lader cited at the beginning of tonight's meeting, as well as the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines concerning new construction, which I cited on agenda item number 2. My evaluation and recommendations, again, this is a complex project because we have the 2 buildings, and you have seen this building in several iterations, a couple times prior to my involvement as the historic officer. So I try my best to summarize those. I try to summarize what you've already approved so that we don't spend time on that and do spend time on what we need to either amend from previous resolutions or things we have not yet seen. My evaluation and recommendations. During its meeting on February the 27th, 2017, so that was prior to my involvement, in consultation with the City of Bethlehem representatives, HCC generated a list of specific architectural elements and details to be evaluated and considered by the developer of the 30 East 3rd Street property. The resulting list included such things as the retention of the cornice at the roof line, window repairs, including missing transoms, removal of aluminum cladding to reveal various concealed architectural details, various masonry repairs as needed, the redesign of the storefront windows and entrance, the possible retention of the 2-story projecting Goodman sign, and considering restoring the Goodman Furniture painted sign on the upper portion of the rear wall. The applicant returned to HCC on March 19, 2018, as well as September the 17th, 2018. By that time, I had started to serve as the historic consultant. At that time, we saw proposals to restore and renovate the existing Goodman building at 30 East 3rd Street, and also to construct a new addition. At that time, it was called a new addition at 32 East 3rd Street. The addition was originally described as a 5-story mixed-use masonry-clad building, but was subsequently reduced 1 floor level in response to the HCC recommendation that massing of the addition should better complement the existing Goodman building. There was to be commercial space at the entry level and 12 apartment units on the upper floor levels. So those components you have seen and you have approved as appropriate previously. Resulting certificate of appropriateness and identified more detailed renovations to the Goodman building. They included structural reinforcing of the existing flooring and roofing members, installation of a new roof and metal flashings, replacement of existing rotted trim as required with PVC to match the existing, and painting of all trim. So that was actually all approved previously for the Goodman building. Development at the rear entry level back then included potential depot to service the existing bus connections along Mechanic Street. It also included that the existing masonry wall adjacent to the proposed addition could be breached at one or more locations at the entry level to allow for a common commercial tenant at both locations, 30 and 32 East 3rd Street. So that was all based on the existing Goodman building. The resulting certificate also defined appropriate for the new addition to be a 4-story mixed-use masonry-clad building with massing to complement the existing Goodman building that included commercial space at the entry level and 12 apartment units on the upper floor levels. The application and approved certificate continued with a list of appropriate design details. They included the recessed corner entrance at the intersection of East 3rd Street and Adams Street that leads through a vestibule and into the commercial space. The existing south end L extension of the Goodman building. It extends to Adams Street and accommodates a rear commercial service entry as well as a secondary side entrance and dedicated stair and elevator for the residential tenants. There was also a primary entrance for residents accommodated by a slight recess along East 3rd Street. That would act as a transitional element between the existing Goodman building and the new addition. The entry connector includes smaller double-hung windows at intermediate landings, while the entrance door is delineated with cast masonry or limestone that would be different from the remaining brick facade. The cornice lines of the new 4-story addition approximately aligns with those of the Goodman building at the entry level, as well as the upper roof line. The new storefront facade with cornice for the bus depot at the rear repeats existing details at the service entrance of the Goodman building L extension as found along Adams Street. There were 12 one-bedroom residential units organized at the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor levels. They're expressed on the exterior facade with aluminum-clad wood double-hung windows with functioning window sash, all within a red brick masonry construction. Composite detailing at the window heads and sills recall similar details at the adjacent Goodman building. There's a composite parapet and similar design and dimension to the existing parapet at the adjacent Goodman building. Note, the applicant agreed to simplify the parapet at that time in deference to the more ornate parapet at the Goodman building. There were support brackets for the upper cornice, similar in scale but simpler in design or detail to the brackets at the Goodman building. And the applicant, as far as I can tell, I couldn't find any notation of what those bracket materials are. So everywhere else is composite, so I'm assuming it probably,
Correct.
just for the resolution, it would be nice to confirm that. So pretty much everything I just referenced, you've seen and considered appropriate so that the applicant could move forward. The current application includes various updates that reflect ongoing project development. The floor plan drawings of the Goodman building depict a revised commercial entrance sequence at the entry level, at the street level. Previously, it was well recessed back and required quite a pitch, if I remember correctly, to get into and out of the building. That's been changed. It's now only slightly recessed. It has a series of interior doors and a landing with an ADA compliant chairlift, along with steps that lead up into the commercial space. We're not in the steps, etc., but I just wanted to point out, previously we saw a very recessed entrance, and now we see something that's pretty close to the front of the facade. The The previous development at the rear as a depot to service bus connections along Mechanic Street is no longer depicted. Aside from additional restrooms at the second level, there are no specific developments for the Goodman Building indicated on the floor plans. The proposed new addition at 32 East 3rd Street measures approximately 39.5 feet wide by 108 feet deep by 57 feet high at its greatest dimensions, and includes a recessed corner entrance like we saw previously at the intersection. The existing south end L extension of the Goodman Building actually kind of wraps around this. It extends along the back. It's changed slightly. It accommodates rear commercial service entrance, as well as a secondary entrance and dedicated stair and elevator for the residential tenants. Just like before, the primary entrance is accommodated on the East 3rd Street and acts as a transitional element between the two buildings, the existing and the new. In response to the previous HCC commentary, the applicant has refined various details of the entry connector to include smaller double-hung windows at intermediate landings. Previously, we saw one where the windows were interrupted each time by the landing, and we asked them to rethink those so that the windows did not conflict with the landings. The proposed entrance door is delineated as before with cast masonry or limestone, which is similar to detailing at other structures along East 3rd Street. It also should be noted the applicant previously revised floor plans of the entry, first and second floors within the new addition by aligning the floor levels with the levels of the Goodman Building. That's not anything new. We saw that before, and that helps explain the placement of the windows of the new addition as well. The revised facade drawings also illustrate the applicant's ability to approximate the cornice lines of the new addition. So at the lower level of the storefront, as well as at the upper roof line, I would note that the brackets we saw previously have been reduced in scale. Proposed renovations for the existing Goodman Building indicate a revised transom detail at the storefront beneath the building signage. I would suggest that the heights of the doors should be revised so that they align with the underside of the new transom. Currently, you have kind of like a door, a transom, and then a transom. I couldn't tell the dimension of those doors, but typically a door would align with the storefront windows, and you just have one transom above rather than a series. It's just a small issue. The entry-level storefront facade of the new addition respects HCC guidelines. The proposed simplicity avoids competing with a more detailed cornice of the existing neighbor. Similar to previous commentary, the tops of the corner entrance doors leading into the new addition, in my opinion, should also align with the transom. So we have a similar door with a transom below a transom. I would, if it's not too unwieldy with those new doors, I would say the tops of the doors should align with the transom. Since we last saw the project, the applicant has reduced the number of window bays at the side facade of the new addition. My assumption is they reflect new layouts of the apartments behind. But they include the same windows we saw previously, and within the resolution, those types of windows were already approved. There are also new windows indicated in the Goodman Building L extension that faces the side street. And there is commentary to infill brick at select locations, and also, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. New windows for the upper floor levels of the Goodman Building to replace the current brick infill. So there was some brick infill indicated previously where windows used to be. We asked them to revisit that. They're now showing windows or going back into those original window locations. There's also a simplified composite parapet. So if you look on the side facade, as it turns the corner and recesses, then the upper parapet simplifies, and that should be fine. It has a composite parapet with an aluminum coping that steps back as the addition steps back. With the removal of the bus depot at the rear, the applicant now proposes new windows for the existing masonry openings at the entry level. Previously, they had taken some windows that had been boarded over or filled in, or existing windows, changed that to accommodate the bus depot. Now they're putting back windows where there used to be windows, which should be appropriate. HCC previously determined that the proposed aluminum-clad wood 1/1 double-hung windows are appropriate, as are the painted sills and lintels in composite material. As was noted in one of the previous agenda items, the applicant should note that reflective and/or tinted glass for either storefronts, entrance doors, or windows is not appropriate within the district. There are several notations, excuse me. There's several notations indicating the intent to tooth and brick infill as needed within the existing facade. That is appropriate as long as the applicant ensures that the infill matches the size, color, and finish of the existing brick units, while also utilizing historic mortar mix to match the existing. And finally, the applicant previously described investigations into the structural integrity of the exterior wall system. They asked time to study that to determine if the two-story projecting Goodman sign along the front facade could be rehabilitated. Similarly, the applicant previously considered the potential for repainting the mural on the rear of the property. Those were considered intrinsic to the historical identity of the existing structure at 30 East 3rd Street. Currently, neither the sign nor the mural are depicted, so clarification is warranted. And finally, all new signage within the proposed signboards, as well as any kind of exterior lighting, would require subsequent assessments with HCC.
That it, Jeffrey? Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Jeffrey. I know that we've been here before. Many of you have seen this many times at this point, and Jeffrey did a really good job of kind of walking you through the process to getting us to today. I will say that some of the work that we had discussed previously has been completed. Much of that has been with the existing building and our attempt to tighten it up and to get the moisture down. So new roof has been installed, new structure has been installed. The floors are now stable. We do have temp power. We have minor mechanical systems installed to get the moisture out and prevent the regrowth of mold, because it was extensively full of mold at the time. The drawings that you see here kind of represent our current state. We are looking to move forward with this construction. The intent is to fit out the building. We would be building core and shell. There are no, we have no tenants in line right now, so I don't know that there would be any need for signage at this point in time. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
So did you decide not to rehabilitate the existing Goodman sign on the front of the building?
It is still something that's up for discussion. I think the intent would be that the preference on the development team would be not to reinstall it.
Yeah.
Just given the state of the sign itself and the concern with its installation, but we do understand and would be open to commentary on it. And the repainting of the sign on the back side would be something we would certainly consider.
Is it feasible to go full height with the two entrance doors so that you only have one transom above? I don't know if that makes it like a 10-foot high door. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to find a middle ground. So, you know, maybe we can install an 8-foot door and lower that horizontal.
So I guess the main thing we need to do for you tonight, I mean, you're coming with a revised scheme, and you know, I guess what you need is the commission's approval on some of these design revisions as presented.
I do also have the proposed brick and a sample of the window that we're looking at, which is an aluminum clad wood window.
Yeah, I think that
So
would be
I
very,
can bring them up if that's easier.
that'd be great.
There are two bricks. The first that I will show you is the brick of the existing Goodman at the back, so that back L, as best as we could match. So this is called an Alberton brick. And we would be open to using this brick in an attempt to match. The other option that we have is also an Alberton, but it's called a Type 2. It has a little bit more of a flash, a little bit more of movement to the brick itself. So there's some color variation, which may lend itself to working better off of
Yeah.
not trying to match exactly. So, I think we're really open to using either. Our recommendation and preference would be the Alberton 2.
Yeah, I think that seems like a good bet too.
This is a Watson Town brick.
So are you going with a thin brick veneer?
We are, yes.
Okay.
I agree.
One thing that surprised me, I gotta admit, so apparently last time we had approved using composite trim boards for the heads and sills of the windows. Is that what you're saying, Jeffrey? Okay. Okay.
Originally, I think it was basically,
Uh-huh.
the previous discussion, has requested.
Okay. So is it the heads and sills, Michael, are they like AZEK boards? Or?
Yeah, correct. So
Okay.
existing is wood.
Okay.
And we would prefer not
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So that's how that came about. This is just a,
to do that. Looking at that.
okay, well, so that's how that happened. Okay.
Window is an architect series.
Mhm.
Hotel. So obviously this has integral mullions. We're not proposing those. This is just part of the sample. So or it would be just a one-off. So the request was made. We'll move the samples here, and that's fine. Required.
I'm missing sympathy. Not here tonight, but I will.
Okay.
Can we?
Okay, no, that's fine.
Communicate.
One of the issues that we have with glazing is that we look for untinted. And when you get the thermal pane and they're low E and they're argon filled, they will often have somewhat of a tint. Regardless, it's just always there. So I think we have to be aware of that. At least it's been my experience that even though you specify clear, if you put a piece of single strength glass up and hold it and a thermal pane, you'll see a difference, even though they're both nominally clear. So I think we just need to be aware that these windows may meet our requisite as far as being labeled clear, but it may not be absolutely clear.
Yeah, and I think that's just part of, like the low E is, it's
The
going to
code
give it,
requires.
it's going to be a very minimal kind of reflectivity,
Yeah.
but I think that's one of the balancing acts we do in our district is, it's, the code requires some energy efficiency. It's not practical to say, hey, don't produce the window without the low E. So, I just think that's part of the balancing act we do here.
Yeah, it is a code requirement. And given that, we are looking to replace all the windows for the building, I think we wouldn't have a case where one wouldn't match the other, at least for this building. Now, I can't speak to, the building adjacent, but the other point of clarification is on that L that we've discussed, there had been existing windows in the building at one point in time. As it currently exists, those windows had been removed and covered with a brick coat. So we would be putting back in what had been previously.
Michael, one thing that, overall, it's, the infill looks, I think you guys really did a great job on it. But one thing I do want to ask about is, with the stairs that face Third, does the coping have to be that high? I mean, to me, I would say, hey, maybe, since it's recessed a little bit and you have that much wall above the window, would it work to either align it with the existing building or drop it even and make it a clear break between the two buildings?
The issue with, although you see that window, that's not the floor line, that's just the landing.
That's the landing, yeah, I figured.
So you're going up another 5.5 feet to get to the floor line. Could we lower that and put a pitched roof in? Potentially. I think I'd be a little worried about doing that.
Yeah, so I don't know if it'd be better than maybe you match the coping or the cornice. I mean, maybe you match the cornice on the new building and just don't include the decorative parapet. Anyway, it just looks a little, that's the only thing that really jumps out at me is something that, I think needs a little more attention.
Yeah, and what we were looking at was kind of really dumbing it down to allow the existing Goodman building to stand proud, and then the new portion would be the same. So it was a little bit of a diminutive type of coping.
Yeah, and I guess the rendering, because that part, I know it's recessed, but the rendering makes it look flat, and it's
I'm not real, those renderings were not turn out the way that our earlier renderings had, so they read as well as they should have.
The rendering also shows the storefronts as being like a dark bronze. Is that what you have in mind?
We would probably look for the storefront color to match what we're doing with the windows above. So that color has yet to be really finalized, but it may be a hunter green or something that complements that. I think the bronze would stand out and be a little awkward.
Yeah, I don't like we generally only comment on colors when it's a permanent item, but the bronze doesn't look appropriate to me either. And I think I agree that maybe you want to consider green or I mean maybe even what you presented there, which looks kind of like an off-white, might also be a good choice. Jeffrey, I didn't quite hear you mention, do we need to talk about signage since it's presented in the drawings here tonight?
The applicant confirmed there are no tenants, so that must just be a placeholder.
Just a future,
They'll agree to come back at a later time for lighting and for
for signage.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
At what point would you consider the remediation on the mold and condition of the Goodman building? How much, you know, are you at 30%? Are you at 50%?
100%. Yeah, we are 100% completed with the remediation of the mold. So that's been, the building has been mold-free really for at least a year and a half. So when we, about 2.5 years ago, it's hard to keep track of the years. COVID was kind of a lost year.
Yeah.
We made efforts to stabilize the structure and to put a new roof on. Once the roof was on, we set out to have the mold remediated, and that was done. It took a few months, but yeah, it was completely remediated, and which is why we have a temp unit or a smaller mechanical unit in place. Dehumidification.
What's our charge here, Gary?
Well, Craig, I think if you feel ready, and I don't see any public that feels like commenting or is here to comment. It seems to me Michael could use a motion as to whether we accept the current design as presented. Some elements, I guess, yet to be determined, right? Signage once they'll come back at a future point for signage once tenants are identified. There were some brick was presented. I think we can make a motion to approve that. We can make a motion to approve window systems. This is starting to sound like a motion, but
It certainly does.
yeah, was there anything I had missed in that?
We're gonna hold the historic sign.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's what Michael was saying. So, glad you're having a good time, Seth. So anyway, that's my motion. Anybody who, any comment or discussion?
What's the issue with the sign? Is it just,
The sign on the back is not an issue. So repainting that sign is certainly something that we can do. The sign on the front, there are a few, so it's the cost of the repairs for the sign. The rebranding, there's the branding of the building as it currently exists versus future tenants.
That I can understand being a key element to that decision.
Yeah.
People don't really want to know it's the Goodman building, because for 25 years they've walked on the other side of the street or avoided that block completely.
Or Sears, it was the Sears too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. It's that signage is kind of become a part of the building. It's definitely a distinctive element. I could see an argument either way.
Yeah.
So I'm okay leaving it up to the owner as to how they want to utilize that sign, if they feel that it's either important to the building's identity or really they're going through a lot of effort to restore and stabilize the building.
I think historically, the general public thinks of it as the Goodman building.
Yeah.
And I think that to keep that would be.
Forte building is still the Forte.
Forte building is still the Forte building, right? even though it's all houses and CACLV lives there now.
I'm not familiar with that building. Is the sign still on that building?
No, it's just, it was a
It's just no.
textile factory down by William Street.
Yeah, they used to make ties there, the tie factory.
TIE.
Yeah,
Yeah.
TIE.
If I'm renovating that a little bit too, they could do some.
If you didn't get one, I will second your motion.
Okay, and am I to understand that the commission feels that our applicant should maintain and restore the Goodman sign as part of my motion? Is that
I don't think so. I think that sign is a completely different issue in the building.
Okay.
I appreciate that it was the Goodman building for a long time. It's been the vacant Goodman building for a long time.
Yeah.
The sign is old and beat. The building we're keeping.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you can keep the sign as the Goodman Furniture Building if you're gonna have other tenants
Identities,
in it.
right?
So I think I don't think we should make the sign part of the motion.
Okay, I agree with you on that, and
Okay.
not including the sign as part of the motion. So
So that's the motion I'm seconding.
okay, thank you, Craig. So let's put it to vote. Craig Evans,
Aye.
and Lausch,
Aye.
Roger Hudak.
Aye.
Aye. Seth.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for your efforts.
Michael.
Appreciate it.
And I think it's understood that the brick you were recommending with the flash to it is the one that we approved.
That would be the Alvernia 2.
No, I think the one that Michael was recommending to me.
Seth, did you want to see them again?
We're done here.
I would say put both of them and you can choose
Oh,
later.
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't mind that if that's, if you'd be open to putting both in.
Yeah,
We
well,
wouldn't
you
use
know,
them, it would be
There
one
was
or
some
the
real
other.
subtleties to them, so let's just leave it then that we thought the one you recommended
Mhm.
looked like a good choice. But,
Okay.
if you feel like you want to have, options, and I understand, material selections change and who knows what's going to happen.
Availability changes.
Yeah.
How many apartments are going to go in there?
Just 12.
12.
That hasn't changed. So we have 4 per floor
Okay.
for the upper floor.
1 2-bedroom or a mixture?
I think they're all 1 bedroom.
How soon are you expecting to start construction?
Well, we have to, the drawings are ready to be put into permit. So I think, after receiving approval here, we'll probably move forward with submitting them for the new year and hope to get started with the March if possible.
Great. When I first moved here about 17 years ago, I saw there was a sign on the side of that building, that lot was for sale. And I called up that number many, many times and no one ever answered.
Not surprised.
Call Mike now, he'll tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, for the right price.
right.
Yeah.
Good to know.
You don't even have to call, just walk down the street. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
With the coming of that parking garage a little up further, an awful lot of apartments planned for up the other end.
I know, yeah, I know. There's a lot of apartments everywhere going up, but there's less and less need for commercial at this point.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene. Everything's back for you.
I actually have a card.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The card, no. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so with that, has everyone or anyone had a chance to review meeting minutes? Need a motion to approve meeting minutes as well?
They were fine.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, great. right, that sounds like a motion. Meeting minutes accepted.
Accepted. Second.
And any new business? Definitely challenging to have these meetings in mask. I can't see anyone. Seth, if there was something I had misunderstood from a previous conversation, I want to just apologize. Want to thank everyone also for coming here tonight. These are challenging projects. This tonight was a little less challenging, but nonetheless. Okay.
I'm here.
Motion to,
Second.
yeah, second. Thank you again.
1 second, come on.
Gotta learn those Robert's rules.